So the United States of America plays a very significant role in today's global community. And so it's important to understand what has an impact on its behavior, how it creates foreign policy, and how we might think about ways in which we can analyze foreign policy. So first, let's start with levels of analysis. As I've mentioned before about international actors, we can think back to international actors and place them into different levels of analysis. So remember we talked about individual actors. Well, there's an individual level of analysis. If you want to look at anyone's foreign policy, any country's foreign policy, you can look at individual actors and look at what their intentions are, what their capabilities are, and what it is they really are trying to accomplish in any particular foreign policy interaction. Beyond the individual level of analysis, we can move out to the level of society. Remember we talked about societal actors. Well, at the level of society, we can look at particular actors and how they have an impact on foreign policy decision-making. So that's an additional level of analysis. Beyond that, let's look at governments, national governments, and their capabilities and their intentions and their interests, and how that has an impact or a role to play on foreign policy decision-making. Finally, you can look at what we call the systemic level of analysis. You can look at things like international organizations and international law and how those types of activities have an impact on decision-making. So 4 levels of analysis: the individual level of analysis, societal level of analysis, the national or state level of analysis, and the systemic level of analysis. Depending on what you're trying to explain and understand, you might choose a level of analysis that will help you best understand that outcome. So let's say you want to understand the decision to invade Iraq in 2003. If you want to understand the United States foreign policy decision to do that, you could look at the individuals that were involved and the individual decision-making that took place to help us understand and explain an invasion of Iraq. If you want to look at society, you can look at different interest groups, like certain lobbies, for example, or certain defense contractors or organizations that might have had an impact on a decision to go to war in Iraq. You can look at governmental decisions. You could look at the Department of Defense and the Department of State and different aspects of the government itself and how that had an impact on a decision to go to war in Iraq. And then finally, you can look at external factors or systemic factors, and so look specifically at Iraq's decision-making itself, or the United Nations and the role that it played in the decision-making regarding the invasion of Iraq. So again, depending on which level of analysis you choose, you might have a different explanation for what kind of policy ultimately was selected.